So, hello and welcome to the Human Story Behind the Business and Brand podcast. I'm the host, Jeanette Walton. I'm a career brand consultant and a Humans Matter champion, committed to helping others deep dive into their many human facets that make them unique, fabulous beings. I'm also a strong advocate of storytelling to enrich our human connections. So this podcast partnership with Women Making It Work aligns with, but slightly deviates from The Human Behind the Career Brand podcast series. The human story behind the business and brand delves into those poignant moments, experiences, and life lessons that shape these high-performing professional women into who they are today. It discusses their fates, their flaws, their feats, their fears, and all the other fabulous human elements that have driven them to perform so well in their professional and their personal lives. As has been encapsulated in the Women Making It Work celebratory anthology entitled Beyond the Business, Stories of Women Who Dared. So my next guest for this podcast series is Debbie Key. She's one of the authors and storytellers in Women Making It Work's Beyond the Business anthology, representing those women who have had the courage to pivot, who walked away from corporate security, 40-year careers, and/or traditional definitions of success to build something aligned with their deeper calling and values. So Debbie had been a high performer in the corporate world as an award-winning learning strategist for many years, before setting up her own Success Box consultancy in 2020 during the global pandemic. It's an L&D service focused on supporting leader and team growth through purposeful, practical, and human-centered learning. And this was inspired by Debbie's desire to go deeper and wider in terms of unlocking the potential in other people, to shake off the sense of hollowness that had continued to infiltrate throughout her corporate career. Debbie acknowledges that there were moments of crippling self-doubt in establishing her own business. I can relate to that. But that a louder internal voice shouting, "What if it does work?" kept her going. Through her own journey, she's learned that success is deeply personal and that you're allowed to redefine and perhaps redefine again your own version of business success. Debbie's legacy is the belief that we all deserve to do work that lights us up and that lifts others too. So welcome, Debbie. It's such a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Jeanette. And I love that introduction, but I'm just thinking in my head, I don't know whether I'm quite 40 years in the corporate world, not quite that old, but we'll roll with it for the podcast, hey?
Yep. I should have said, let's make it 30 to 40. 30 to 40 years. Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you for being flexible about that.
No worries.
So as you highlight in your story, you've undergone a career pivot to keep you aligned with your values, drivers, and sense of purpose. So was there any specific moment when you realised that it was time to step out on your own, or was it a gradual realisation?
I highlight in the chapter in the book that it was, it was a Tuesday afternoon. I think I even tell the exact time and the environment that I was in. But, when I look at that, that was the moment. However, really was this gradual build to that moment. And that particular time on that Tuesday afternoon, that was the recognition. It was almost like a light switch turning on. And it was, you know what? I just no longer want to fight for a seat at this table. It's, it's not designed for people like me. I bring different things, or I want to bring different things to the table. And as much as they might sit there and smile and nod their head and go, "Oh, yes, that sounds good," they really didn't value it. They really didn't want to take the time and the effort and I don't know what it is. It didn't relate to numbers. Things don't relate to numbers. You can't quantify it easily. So therefore, as much as I got really good at writing reports on learning ROI, it still wasn't telling the full story. And for me, that's the missing link in a lot of workplaces, because the humans don't equate into qualifiable numbers that they can go, "Oh, yes, okay, well, that's success. Let's tick that off and, move into the next thing. What can we do next to walk down that path a bit further?" It just doesn't work like that. So, yeah, it was that gradual build, and then that light just flicked on at that particular point in time. It was, I had a flicker on my screen where a project I'd been working on for a long time, and it was going to be hugely successful if they let me do it. They were sidelining it yet again. And,
Right. Yeah.
it's like, my Lord, I just can't battle this anymore,
Yeah. Yep. It's through your own business that you really get more opportunity to be creative, don't you?
Absolutely. So I spend so much more time in that creative zone, and I work with people that want that creativity to
Yes.
come out.
Yes.
So in
Yes.
my own business, I get to choose who I work with. I don't have to follow or work with those people that are sort of like sent to me type thing. I quite easily say no to a customer if they don't, if they don't align with my values or if they don't want to step into something that's innovative or creative or, I use a lot of play in my workshops. Learning happens naturally when people are enjoying themselves. And if, I call it play, um, adult play, and they're designed specifically to create those learning experiences. But if the company doesn't want play, I've had some clients like let's go the finance sector, for example. I've got some clients that love it in the finance sector, but there's some other people that go, oh no, we can't do that. That's no, like
Ha ha ha.
you can't put toys on
Taboo.
the table.
Yeah. There's
So I get to choose and I can say yes and I can say no and I can talk about how, what I do and what I design and the creativity I bring to it actually changes behavior and I've got the evidence to back that up. So when they can be bothered to listen and listen deeply and actually comprehend what's being said, then they go, "Oh yeah, that sounds great. Let's do that." And that's what was missing from the let's go to the boardroom table, that corporate space, because they're so
yeah.
trying to, and they've got, regulations and compliance and all those things to tick off, and that's fine. But, I would look at compliance training and go, why does it have to be boring? Why can't we do this and this and this and this? And they'd go, "Oh, no, you can't do that. It has to tick all these boxes. We can still tick the boxes, but we can do it in this fun way." Oh
Yeah.
no, that's a bit scary. We won't do that. And it's like, you keep putting it out there and putting it out there, and there's only so much, no you can take until you go, "That's enough. I'm out of here."
So you're breaking the mold really, yeah? By
Yeah, yeah, and I think,
bringing into play.
yeah, in learning and development, so many people turn up to, they either turn up to e-learning particularly or a face-to-face workshop and they go, "Oh, here we go again." Like it's such a chore. And it shouldn't be. It should never be. And it's one of those things where if I can break that in the first instant, when I design e-learning, it's breaking it from the very first, hit the
Yeah.
start button type thing. When it's face to face, it is having, I have fidget toys. They're on the table constantly. And then I explain what they are and they go, "Oh, that makes sense," because those fidgeters in school who were told off and put the
I
fidget
remember the
down.
fidgeters. Yep, I remember them.
Yep.
Yep. Throwing
Well,
things
it's
at
been
people and
yep, it's been proven now that when people are actually fidgeting, if they need to fidget, and not everybody does, but if they need to fidget, that's when they're actually learning. So when we tell them to put it
it's
down, stop
interesting.
doing that, they stop learning.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean
Yeah, wow.
that's just a little piece of
Yeah, that's
science.
fascinating. I didn't know that. I just thought they were disruptive when I was in school. I didn't realise that
Yeah.
that was their way of learning. Yeah,
Yeah,
wow.
it is. Yeah, because there
Mm.
are I mean, if you wanna go into some of the theory, it's kinesthetic learning and they learn when they've got something in their hands, right?
Yeah, okay.
So,
Yep.
obviously, you don't want them to sit there with, those horrible clicking pens. You don't want
Yes.
them to sit there with that. But, I've got all sorts of fidget toys, whether they be enormous pipe cleaners to, those squishy ball type things or animals that you can get in lots of $2 shops. And my grandchildren actually are very jealous of I'm looking at them down here, at my adult learning toys because they'd love to get to play.
You've just made me think I've got a dear friend of mine who's always telling her husband off for fidgeting. But maybe that's what he needs to do, yeah?
He's concentrating. He's actually concentrating and focusing on
Yeah.
the information that's coming into his brain. And if you take the fidget away, it basically shuts it. Well, I mean, the brain still works, but it basically
Yeah.
shuts learning down, right?
Yeah,
So
wow. I'll have to
yes,
tell her that.
yes,
Leave him alone.
living fidget
Let
because
him fidget.
yeah, it's such a small piece of information, but it's so valuable. And once I
Absolutely.
share that with learners in a workshop, particularly, they go, "Oh," and I have got them captured right from that moment. And then,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
might have Lego on the table. I might have
I was thinking of Lego Play. I mean, there's a reason why there's Lego Play.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. NASA created Lego Play. And yeah, the reason it exists is that when people actually start playing with the Lego and you get them to build things in the Lego. So it might be that you're doing, I don't know, strategic leadership, for example, and you might say to them, okay, well, build for me what your strategy is for 2026. So they
Yeah.
build whatever they build, and everybody's building around the table. And you get all of these different perspectives of what that strategy looks like in their own brains, right? And
Yeah.
then the beauty of Lego Play is that every person around the table has to tell everybody else what their design is and what it
Yeah.
leans
Okay.
into. And as
Yep.
a facilitator, you actually go, okay, and what's that little red piece sticking out of the top that, and why have you put it on that particular side? And you probe much deeper, and it actually goes into a really deep, deep space.
Yeah. Okay.
You get better answers, right?
Yeah, and evokes curiosity
It
and why
does.
people do what they. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Love it.
and you
Love
should
it.
see
Well,
it when you ask them to break their creations down to start the next one, and
they don't want
they
to.
don't like that. They
Ah.
phones come out, photos get taken, and
Oh
yeah,
well.
so it's a really powerful, it could be that, it could be just image cards, it could be all sorts of things that you can use
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
evoke
Wow.
a deeper resonance with the subject that you're talking about and discussing,
Yeah.
and taking it to a whole different level for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Love it. So you also highlight in your story that your business success box is as much a personal revolution as it is a bold business decision. So, what have been the most notable personal impacts or benefits since you started up Success Box?
I think it actually goes down to that, really, for me, a deep sense of alignment, having that, you know what, I don't need to work with you as a client. I can actually, say no and step into somebody who is very much aligned with what I want to see happening within this space. And I think also for me, that rediscovering of my creativity, because I think in the corporate world, as much as I was allowed to create, I wasn't allowed to be as creative
So
as
you
I
can be
wanted to.
yourself. You can be yourself.
I can be myself. I can be my true, authentic self.
Yeah.
And I can play with things. I love new stuff coming in. The world of AI, it's just absolutely fascinating. And, sitting I don't have to be on the cutting edge of that stuff, but actually understanding and having awareness of what's there and the potential to see where it can go. And I think that
Mm.
is the creativity that really I've awakened, because it's one of those things that I can put out there and suggest to people, and they go, "Oh, that's an interesting concept."
How it can support us. That's the key with AI, isn't it? It's about how can it support us. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yep.
It's, I'm all for, and I mean, I do AI workshops, and I do all of that side of it as well. But when I do train AI workshops, I actually make sure that they fully understand that it's always human intelligence over artificial intelligence, right?
100%. 100%.
Yeah, and I'm actually, artificial intelligence, I nearly stopped myself from saying it, but people don't understand that my calling it, I want to call it augmented intelligence, because I think artificial intelligence is not a true representation of what it is. It's augmentation. We are using augmented intelligence to actually help us do
Yes.
things better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. To do things better. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%. So,
Sorry, one. Yeah.
so if you don't mind sharing, what would you say was the scariest or most challenging moment you experienced when setting up your own business?
Look, it wasn't so much in the setup, but it was about 12 months in, and I had this big client, big client. It was like a couple of $100,000. We were set for the next 12 months. I'd hired some team members, all of that. And then that particular contract just fell.
Ew.
Yeah, ooh, yeah. Because you've got this big contract and you're going to be busy for the next, 12 to 18 months, you don't chase the next pipeline, right? You don't chase the next
Yeah.
thing. You're sort of going, oh, well, I don't need to do that until we get to 12 months down the track.
And you're putting in a lot of effort for that big contract too. You don't have
Yeah.
time to
And
be
it
looking
was
for
through no
others.
fault of our own. The people that we were working with, they were bought by a bigger company, and all contracts were
Right.
just null and void, right?
Yep.
So, that was really scary. There was no safety net. There was no payroll cycle. There was no fallback. It was just, oh dear,
Yeah.
or other words that you can put
I was
into.
going to say, I'm sure you said more than oh dear, but yep.
But you know, I look back now and I go, okay, well that particular moment actually forced real growth. Had to
Yeah.
step up. Had to go right. Well, shake yourself up. What are you going to do? How are you going to build that next
And
thing?
to pivot again.
Yeah, you do. You know, and you've got it all sitting there, and you know, I had my husband was actually working for me full time at that point, and it's like he
Right.
goes, "Oh, well, I'm the first one to go," and I went, "Well, yeah, go get a job." And I had a contractor and I had a casual employee, but you know, we were all working really hard on this project, and it's sort
Yeah,
of
that
like,
must have bamboozled you.
yeah, and you know, I've had to terminate people in corporate world, but when it's your own business and you've hired people that you know you who can do the job, and you go, "Oh,
Yeah,
this is yucky." It's really
it's a lot more
yucky.
personal, isn't it, when it's your
Yeah.
little business, yeah? Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, that financial challenge was hard and good lesson to learn because never, ever will I set myself up for that type of,
To fully rely on one contract until it's
yes,
signed and sealed.
yep, multiple at all times, you know. And I,
Yes.
I think learning that type of stuff, and I mean, you know, learning it's a constant evolution, right? You're always learning. But for me, I think also, you know, in setting up the business, I think I stepped into my identity, right?
Yeah.
And even though I think I stepped away from some identity, for, you know, in the corporate world, you know, because you have a job title and everybody, you know, respects you for what you've done and who you lead and what, you know, what projects you work on. But at the same time, you know, walked away from that identity and I've stepped into who I really am. And
That's
that's
wonderful.
empowering.
So rewarding. Yeah, yeah. Even through the hard times, yeah, you know what you're doing is the right path.
Yeah, even through the hard times. And I mean, it doesn't mean that there's not that pull.
Yes. I feel it sometimes. I've been in business myself for 15 years and I still sometimes think, oh God, should I just go get a job?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Not have all that pressure. Yeah, I get it.
yeah,
Totally.
you know, the old adage, you know, chief cook and bottle washer. Well, you know, you've got to be the chief, the marketer, the financier, the, you
Yep.
know, the
Yep.
creator, you know,
Yep.
and it's like,
The
oh my
adapter.
goodness, yeah, how do I do all of this? What you do, you do.
Yeah. And you keep learning as you go, as you say.
Absolutely.
So, your primary objective in terms of leaving a legacy is to do work that lights us and others up. Are there any examples of where you've experienced that so far in your business?
Look, there's many, but I'm going to focus on a recent one. I
Yeah.
recently designed an emerging leaders program for Indigenous leaders, right? For First Nations people. It was for a large university and really lovely program. And I had full creativity, design scope to go wherever I needed to go and designed that program. And then I co-facilitated it with a beautiful friend of mine, colleague, who is Indigenous. So I had her to rely on in making sure, because I don't have an Indigenous background.
Cultural safety and all the rest of it.
Yeah, and just making sure that the language was right and the tone was right and all of those sorts of things. And so we co-facilitated that together. We actually just finished this week the program. It was a 6-month program, and watching the participants connect deeply to their identity as leaders and witnessing their confidence build in that real time. And they did it through cultural strength. You know, we absolutely validated their culture and the experience around their culture. And that in itself, in the room, we did virtual and face to face. That is
Soul nourishing.
yeah. And then just to top it off, that program actually has just won a Platinum Lonex Award, which is
Wow, that's
creme de la
amazing.
creme. Yeah, so that validates
Amazing.
in the industry as well. So that's yeah,
That's a big validation, a big tick.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well
Right.
done.
I said to the team that I've got every other color on the shelf of awards. I've got lots of awards on the shelf. It's quite heavy, but I didn't have a platinum one, so it's like, yeah,
You've made it.
I
You've
made
made
it.
it. Oh, well done. Well done. So just a couple more questions to wrap up this lovely conversation. A couple of questions I've been asking everyone. So if you were on your deathbed, What would your reflection be on how rewarding it's been to set up and run your own business?
Think I'd like to say that I'm really proud that I didn't settle, that I didn't just stay in that corporate world and go, okay, well, I'll just come to work and just get the pay and just,
Yeah,
tick the box, right? I think
playing it safe.
playing it safe, yeah. So I think, yeah, proud that I didn't settle and proud that I chose meaning over convenience. Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Yeah,
Love that.
it's an interesting question because you sort of go, oh, well, what would I do? But, hopefully I leave something that left people better than when they arrived. And, that sort of embraces why I'm doing it and
Love that.
how I approach it. And,
Yeah,
if I can ignite that improvement, investment, that step forward, whatever that looks like for those people, I think that to me is success, and that's a legacy.
and I imagine being in your own business and being a smaller business, you get to watch people develop more, yeah,
Yes,
through what you're
absolutely.
doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a very diverse business. I do everything from coaching and mentoring people right through to designing large leadership programs.
Yep.
And everything in between, like everything in between.
Yeah, you sort of
And
have
not
to
that
you
I
have
say
to be versatile as a business owner these days, don't you? A small business owner.
yeah,
Mm.
and it's not that I say yes to everything. I used to. When I first started the business, I said yes to everything. It's like whatever came across the table, you say yes to. Now I can be more picky and choosy about what it
That's
is.
feeling more confident in your
Yeah,
business, isn't it?
that I lean
Yeah.
into. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
it's one of those things that you just wanna I think you wanna look back and say, "I'm happy. I'm happy with what I did and what I achieved
Yeah.
and who
Yeah.
I."
You gave it a go. You gave it a go.
Yep, absolutely. And
Yep.
I think what I said initially, that just didn't settle. I just wasn't happy to sit there and stay safe and, and it's
Yeah.
scary. It is so super scary to walk away.
It's massive. It's massive to work for yourself, to step up and do it on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Particularly if you've got a steady employment, yeah? Is there any final message that you'd like to pass on to anyone who listens to this podcast in terms of having the courage to pivot and perhaps pivot again when necessary?
Yeah, I think pivot is not just a one-off opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And I think in all honesty, I think your life expands when you decide to be honest with yourself. When you can look internally and it's not just self-awareness, it's really going deep and having that inner honesty with
Yep.
yourself.
Yep.
And you recognize that pivoting, it's not a rejection of what you've done in the past. It's actually an investment in your future.
Yeah.
And, if you have to pivot more than once, you pivot.
It enables you to grow as well, doesn't it? When you keep
Absolutely.
pivoting.
Each time you
Yeah.
do it creates that growth. And,
Yeah.
growth is all about learning simple things, small things, big things. It doesn't matter. And you're allowed to, I think it's important for people to recognize that you're allowed to change your mind.
Yes.
If it's not
Yes.
right, that's, we're saying pivot, but if it's not right, well, you've just walked a step down the wrong path. Step back, go
Yes.
down another
Yes.
path. You can choose
Yes.
bigger, braver every single time.
Yeah. Yes. I've just done that myself. I've made a big decision that through me really that I've changed my mind on something that I thought was my next pathway and
Yeah.
but it didn't feel right.
And that's it. You've got to trust your gut. I've always, throughout my entire career, whether I was working in HR and interviewing people, whether I was in the L&D space, I always trusted my gut. It was just a natural instinct, and it sits
Yes.
there. And I think your gut. I fully believe that your gut brain is your first brain, and then that tells
100%.
everything else what to do, right? So if your gut is telling you that it feels too small or it's not right or it's
Not the time.
not the time, yep. Oh, and that inner voice is going away. And you've got to trust that feeling. Okay.
Yes.
But you've
Yes.
also got to go, you know what? If I step out now, it only takes one step and you can start your next chapter. And there's a fantastic book that I would recommend to anybody, written by a lady called Nadine Champion. She's the most gorgeous lady, and she's a keynote presenter. And you can Google her on YouTube.
I think I will after this.
She's got a fascinating life, and she's got a book called 10 Seconds of Courage. And she talks about, she was a kickboxer, world champion kickboxer type person. That may not be correct, might be not be the right word.
Something impressive.
Yeah, and she talks about 10 seconds of courage, and, you know, 10 seconds of courage is not when you're in the ring. Okay, that's not when you need the courage. You actually need 10 seconds of courage when you're at the dressing room door, ready to walk to the ring. That's when you need the 10 seconds of courage. And, you know, she says you take you start just one step from the door. All of a sudden, you've got 10 steps. That's your 10 seconds, and you're in the ring. And I think that when I first heard, I've heard her speak about 3 or 4 times, and when I first heard that, I went, yes, I think it really helped me on my path. So
Really
I
resonates.
share her journey, and I highly recommend her book. But she, if you jump onto YouTube,
One step, in addition to being willing to pivot and change your mind, just one step at a time. Yeah, I
yep,
love that.
yep. And
Yeah,
10 seconds of
yeah.
courage. We've all got
Yeah,
10
10
seconds
seconds of
that we can
courage.
go, yep, I'm going to lean into this space. It's only for 10 seconds. And then all of a sudden,
And
the
I can
10
lean
seconds,
out if I want to, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
10 seconds becomes a lifetime, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah,
amazing,
yeah.
amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time, Debbie. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you, and I've learnt something really interesting today that I will tell my friend about that fidgeting factor. Yeah, really, what an inspiration you are, you know, particularly when you talk about, you know, the pivots you had to do after you'd set up your business, like losing a major contract. But you've kept going, and now you're flourishing. Yeah, you were just telling me beforehand how busy you are in the lead up to Christmas. So well done. It's been really a real pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you so much, Jeanette. It's been an absolute delight sharing my story and speaking with you as well.
Thank you.